Alright, so I wanted to put together a little bit of a longer video of how I clean up the Redmax torches. This one we're going to go a little further in depth and give it a good scrub down. And yeah, we're going to clean the ports mainly, get this thing looking fresh and new, burning real nice and hot. I got this torch from my shopmate Don Joe. He's had this for about 6 years, and you can see here it's getting pretty dirty. Some of the ports are getting all clogged up. When your candles are all different sizes, you got small candles, big candles, all kinds of different stuff going on. It's not burning very efficiently, and it's not a hot torch. So everything takes longer, and yeah, Redmax gets a pretty bad rap. And I really wanted to show you guys how to do this because a lot of these torches get thrown around the shop for a lot of years without cleaning, and if you clean them up, they're actually pretty decent little torches for the price. Quick look at some of the tools we're going to use. We got a couple different size wrenches, can't remember what they were. I got a crescent wrench just in case. We got these Allen wrenches that are going to use for the back of the head of the torch. Don't remember what size those are either. We do have some number drills. These are real special drill bits. You can get them off of Amazon. Number 60 through 80, I believe. And they have a standard measurement in inches on the inside of that. I think we're going to use number 71.026. But these were like $7 or so off of Amazon. And they're really delicate. You want to be careful with them. But yeah, they will fit the ports exactly, so you can drill them out and make sure everything is nice and smooth. I got a hand drill that's going to hold those bits. This hand drill is a little bit big, but I think that's okay. As long as you're real careful with it, you'll be fine. But with the bigger hand drill, there's a lot more weight behind the bit, and you have a tendency to bend them or break them easier that way. So the smaller the hand drill, the better, I think. But the main thing we're going to use, and the thing you really only need, is a brass brush for cleaning the back of the ports. You could use a toothbrush. You could just scrub it with some Scotch-Brite or something else. But a brass brush works great. We're also going to use this Scotch-Brite for on the outside of the torch head, get everything looking nice and pretty and scrubbed up. So of course the first step in this one is to take off the hoses. This one happened to have barb fittings on it. I don't know why, but Don Joe slammed these tiny little hoses on there so they barely fit. You know, when the life of a broke glass blower, you kind of have to do whatever you can to get things done. And yeah, these got pressed on here, so I couldn't get them off. Fuck it, let's cut them. Get them off there. And there we go. Get those cut away. And now we can actually work on the torch. So taking a closer look at the head, you can see that there's different rows, 3 rows of, or 2 rows in a centerpiece as far as the fuel ports, and the little tiny holes on the outside of those circles are where the oxygen comes from. So we're going to really focus on cleaning the holes in the center of that row. Those are round, and the holes on the outside aren't perfectly round. We'll clean the top torch a little bit too. We'll clean the face off. You can see the face is a little bit eroded. If I turn it on its side, you can see there's a little bit of change in the level of the face. So we're going to sand it off nice and smooth, get everything flush, no burrs, and make sure it's nice and fuel efficient that way, nice and hot. We also want to clean up the body. This thing's looking pretty beat up after 5 years or so. It's got lots of wax and glass stuck to it. Sean wanted to keep the stickers, so we're going to try to save those. And we'll also take apart the knobs, so you get to see inside of the knobs if you've never done that. First thing, of course, is going to be taking apart the body. And then we'll get to the torch head, scrub the outside of the head, and make sure everything looks nice and pretty. Alright, let's get into it. All the little accessories on the side. Take the hoses off, the knobs off of the head. Get the head all exposed by itself. When you're doing this, you want to be really careful with these copper tubes. Everything's soldered together, so if you bend that tube or crack it, you're pretty much out of luck. And it takes quite a bit more work to get those things soldered back together and get them working right. And it's a little bit more labor intensive than what I would recommend anybody do. So the top torch, also kind of same deal. Scrub it out, Scotch-Brite the surface, and try to get all the joints looking clean and pretty. And then, yeah, we'll take apart the knobs. These can get carbon buildup inside of them. They can get kind of cruddy. And one of these is really sticky. So we're going to unscrew the knobs and clean out the insides and just make sure that everything looks perfect. So jumping right into taking apart the torch head. I did this all by hand. I didn't put it in a vise or anything like that. If you can, try to do it by hand, but don't press against that copper tube. If you bend that copper tube, you will not have a good day. So I'm trying to grip the head as much as I can and just break the nut loose or the bolt loose and not bend that copper tube. And it's kind of a fight to get them loose, but they are all just hand tight, which is my torque spec for when I put them back together. Makes it easy that way. If you put it in a vise and you break everything loose, it's a good way to do it too, but you don't want to mark up the head, and I was able to get them all apart with just with my hands. Be real careful. I cut myself here. Get a fresh piece of paper so we don't have blood everywhere. And yeah, you want to loosen all the bolts, crack them all loose first, and then take them out. If you take them out all one by one and you have just one bolt that's super tight, you could put a little bit of uneven pressure on the head. So it's best practice to crack them all loose and unscrew them all by hand. And here's the big reveal. So after 6 years of propane shooting through this manifold, you can see it's really, really gunked up. All those small candles that we had on that one side are all these ports with all the carbon buildup over them. And some look like they're completely plugged. There's definitely some gas sneaking through most of them. But yeah, basically cleaning this carbon buildup off will be 90% of the work that we need to do to make the torch actually run nice. So we're going to pick some of that off just to show you and kind of expose what's going on in there. You can see this stuff really likes to gunk up. And it's kind of fluffy, weird shit. But yeah, that's all propane from the propane manifold. We can't actually get into the oxygen manifold in there, but we will kind of poke out the ports to make sure they're clear. So yeah, taking a brush real quick and cleaning off the back side of these ports. And that's all it takes really to get them opened up. It's good to blow a little bit of compressed air through there. We're going to do that after we drill them out with the bits. Make sure everything's nice and clean. But yeah, you can see light through all those ports, and everything's looking pretty good. So on the back of the manifold here, you see a little bit of carbon buildup in there, but nothing too bad. I'm mainly just checking this surface to make sure everything looks okay. We can scrub this off with some Scotch-Brite, but you want to be careful not to score or scar this surface because it will leak. I'm basically going to pick the one I think is going to be the right size and try it by hand and be really delicate with it. These bits don't like to flex or bend. They're hardened, so they will snap. And you want to be real careful, wiggle these bits in, and check and make sure it's the right size. Number 71, I've already cleaned one of these torches, and I remember correct that it was 71 last time. So real nice and gentle, making sure that these fit in there. And we can get the camera to focus here. You can see that's fitting down in the port. I want to check a few of them. Now when you're trying to get this bit in there, and it's not going in real smooth, you want to check the angle of it. Because all these ports happen to point in towards the center just a little bit. You can see there the angle of that drill bit. They all point towards the center. They're not straight parallel ports. So be aware of that. So now that we know what size we got, we're going to try to clean out a few of these. And the front of the port always seems to be pretty smooth, but the back of the port either has a burr on it from them cutting them or is just really dirty from all that carbon buildup. So we're going to try a few of them here And just be real careful and try to poke these out. And make sure we're long enough so we can actually get through the other side of the port there. I was getting kind of frustrated. Couldn't get this to fit in there, so I was moving really fast. And you can see I'm bending that bit all around. You do not want to do that. So we're going to go to a smaller bit, check and make sure. And that's moving through really, really easily. It's not giving me any resistance at all. So we can clean out the debris in there, but we're not really going to scrape the sides and make sure it's perfect. You can see I fit through all the way to the other side. We can see the bit through the other side, so I know for sure I'm cleaning out the whole port. And I'll just go around and poke all these out preliminary with this number 72, and then we'll go back to the 71 and see if we can get them really, really nice and polished up and cleaned out as well as we can. So a trick if you're losing your spot while you're cleaning, just mark them with a Sharpie. We're going to sand the face of this off anyway, so not too big of a deal to just mark it real quick. We're going to hit every port, go around, make sure everything's clean. And just kind of softly poke these out, make sure there's absolutely nothing in there. Then we'll come back with a little bit bigger bit. Move from the 72 to 71. And now we can finally get this bit all the way through. Back to the port, make sure everything's nice and clear. And this fits the port perfectly. We know it's exactly the size of the port. So, real nice and easy. Go around, poke these all out. Again, you want to be gentle and careful. If you start wiggling around too much, or if you move too fast, the bit will break. So be gentle with it, and do not flex the drill bit. And there we go, snapped one off. Super bummer. Take your smaller bit, poke it out from the backside, and move on. Hopefully you can get that cleaned out nice. I was able to get it out of there no problem with a smaller bit from the other direction. Anyway, sanding the face of it. This is really the step that you should probably do first before you drill anything out, because there's going to be some small burrs from sanding. I did go back through with that smaller bit that I didn't break and clean all the ports out again, just to be sure that everything was going to work out okay and get it as beautiful as possible. You want to use a nice flat surface while you do this. I think I used a 220 grit sandpaper. You could go a little higher than that. I don't think anything above 600 is necessary. But you can see we got it nice and polished. Got it all, the surface all leveled out. The combustion out of those oxygen and fuel ports are going to mix a little bit better with a nice flat surface. That center fire port was a little bit too deep. I didn't want to shave off too much. So you can see it's still kind of a little black, but we'll Scotch-Brite it and try to clean it up. The rest of the ports, though, look absolutely perfect. And yeah, clean them out with that drill bit one last time. Give it a little bit of compressed air, and then we'll move on to the Scotch-Brite. Cleaning out all those ports one last time, making sure everything's nice and pretty. Really pays to take your time with everything. Of course, as you can see, you move fast and you break bits. Alright, so we pretty much got everything cleaned out, and we're going to move on to the Scotch-Brite now. found this little mark on the side. It probably lines up with the rear of the manifold, so we'll want to take a closer look at that later. I'm going to clean up the copper, clean up everything here, clean up the back of the head so that those two pieces meet together nice and smooth. Cleaning the back of the manifold. There's those marks again. Give the base a quick scrape down. Lots of broken glass on this and beeswax, so be careful when you're cleaning these things. And moving on to the top torch. So pretty much the same deal. I'm going to sand down the face of the top torch. I grabbed my marver pad because it's a little bit flatter than the table was. And with the smaller head, we want to be sure we get it nice and flat. So, looking good. I'm going to clean out those ports again. Just poke them out real quick with that bit. I think it took a little bit bigger bit than what the smaller, or the bottom torch did. Yeah, make sure that's all nice and clean. And we'll Scotch-Brite that all down. Get it nice and polished up. And there we are. She's looking nice and clean. Blow that all out with compressed air. Make sure we don't have any debris left in the ports. And blow out the bottom torch as well. Make sure you send everything right back out the way it came in. And we're going to clean the body. Don Joe wanted to keep the stickers on this, so we're just going to clean it with alcohol. If you scrape this with the Scotch-Brite or anything else, it'll scratch the anodizing off of the aluminum body. So don't clean that with the Scotch-Brite. Alright, jumping into the knobs here. You can see this knob is getting pretty loose. And yeah, we want to open that up, make sure there's nothing in there. Make sure everything looks nice and smooth and clean. And yeah, you just basically unscrew it. Come right out. It's got threads on the inside for the progression of the actual needle in there. And the needle looks nice and clean. There's a little bit of wear on it, but that's normal. Yeah, threads look good. Everything looks good on this one. So we'll just kind of clean it out with a Q-tip and blow it out real quick. Now when you're threading these back together, you want to make sure that that inside thread gets threaded in straight. If you cross thread these, you will have to replace them, and there's not much you can do about it. So back it up a couple left turns, make sure you're on the right thread. Thread it in real smooth, and then screw in that outside collar. And depending on how tight you make this outside collar will adjust the tension on the knob. So if it feels real nice and smooth and where you like it, then go for it. But if you want it tighter and a little more snug, you can tighten it down. And if you want it really loose, you can loosen it up quite a ways and put some Loctite on the threads. I wouldn't use a permanent Loctite, but you could put a drop of Loctite on there, and that'll keep it from backing out. I wouldn't necessarily use thread tape. Some people are controversial over propane and thread tape. But yeah, so here we got everything cleaned up. Got all the torch head and the knobs together. Everything's looking good. And we're going to line up these marks when we put this torch head back together. I saw this on my torch and on Don Joe's here. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and keep that where it was from before, and hand thread these bolts in first. We want to make sure we get all these started real nice and smooth. If you cross thread any of these, you're gonna have a bad time. So set all these down until they all touch the face, and then we'll use the Allen wrench to tighten them down by hand. I'm using a star pattern to tighten them down, just like you would on the lug nuts of your car, to make sure that they're all the same torque spec. And since I got it apart with my hand, I know I can put it back together with my hand, and everything should work out perfect. Go ahead and thread the knobs back on. Make sure everything lines up nice and good. Tweak it all into place if you got any of those tubes bent. Make sure nothing's out of whack or cracked or broken. And make sure it all goes together smooth. And using 2 wrenches while you're doing this will prevent you from putting strain on those lines, on those copper lines. So be sure you got a good point to put pressure on, and don't rush yourself, because if you break a line, it's going to take you twice as long to fix it, And yeah, that's no fun. Putting the body on these torches is kind of funky. Nortel did a weird thing where they sandwiched the mounting brackets for most of the stuff in between these two plates. So take your time putting this together and make sure you get all the bolts in the right spots. This one looks like it used to have a marver on the front of it, so it's got some funky screws, but we're just going to use those again anyway. And yeah, when you're clamping this down, make sure that you have those torches in the right spot. So yeah, when you're clamping this down, look in here and see that it's pinched by the body of the torch. You want to make sure that this bolt is real tight on that bracket. If that bracket's loose, we'll put strain on those copper lines and we could break them over time. So loosen up the bolts if you need to, get them tightened down in the right pattern so that those brackets are in there real snug. And yeah, we don't want anything slipping out. And so everything looks pretty straight and clean there. And now we can basically just put it back on the base. Oh, that's right. This bracket has a hole in it. Okay, take that bolt back out, take it all apart again, get the bracket back in there, put all the bolts back in, tighten everything back up, make sure the brackets are nice and snug so we don't put any strain on the copper tubes, put together the base, and fire the damn thing up. Because we've already wasted too much time on this, and it's just a Redmax, right? No, we love these torches. There we are. Play with the knobs a little bit, make sure she's hitting full throttle, make sure you can pin it around the corner, and yeah, she's burning. So there we are, guys. Nice and clean looking now. All the candles are the same size. Pretty much a brand new torch. Thanks for watching.